Hi folks, this is Dr. Rob CYWES and I am the Carb Addiction Doc, and because I'm a surgeon, I kind of have to think very simplistically. So in the first of this short series on simple keto for beginners, the first video discussed everything you need to know about keto, about how you should eat in a sustainable way. This video is going to talk to you a little bit about why things break down and how to adopt an addiction philosophy as opposed to a diet philosophy to your approach so that it is sustainable as a way of life. To understand keto from an obesity perspective, from a lifestyle and addiction perspective, you've got to know this. The reason you became fat or metabolically sick or type 2 diabetic in the first place is because you shifted, not intentionally but vicariously, from eating for the nutritional value of food to eating for the emotional value of food. In exactly the same way that an alcoholic drifted from drinking for the hydrational value of water toward drinking alcohol for its emotional management value, and you develop that relationship over time in a chronic excessive way to the point of harm. You've ignored or distorted the reality of the harm to continue the relationship. So there is tremendous emotion management benefit to the consumption of carbohydrates and snacking that will always be a magnet. It will always give you enormous instant gratification. But you also want to consider the mountain of harm that has negated or reduced the benefit, not because the benefit isn't there, but because the harm is excessive and it's going to cause permanent damage or even death. So we've got to mitigate and understand the harm versus the benefit. So once you engage in a carbohydrate addiction model, the principles are very simple when it comes to the direction in which you go. The first statement is this: you cannot break a beneficial habit that is causing harm if you are still doing it. You cannot break a habit that you are still doing. So all these diets that are, you can have 30 grams of carbohydrates or carb reduce, or you can have a little snack, keto snacks, those are keeping the habit alive. They are keeping the habit alive. And the second parallel principle is you have to replace the beneficial emotion management habits with a different emotion management habit that doesn't cause harm. Okay? So you're going to remove a habit that has value but that has caused harm. You want to replace it with a habit that has value over time but doesn't cause harm. You cannot break a habit you are still doing, and importantly, you cannot create a new habit unless you consciously force yourself to do it every day. I'm not suddenly going to take my dog for a walk on a really bad day if I don't take my dog for a walk every day, if that is not a direction in which my head goes. And the key thing to understand, and this is why diets fail. Diets fail because we don't do the replacement. Diets fail because we don't completely break the habit. And diets fail because we don't understand that every habit has a threshold. And no matter what anybody tells you, changing addiction management and breaking habits and creating new ones requires at first conscientiously and consciously forcing yourself not to participate or to participate until the conscious force becomes integrated over time with who you are as a human being. And you've become that changed person. Every habit has a threshold over time. So at first, when you get rid of those carbohydrates, both biologically and psychologically, you go into enormous depression. You go into enormous withdrawal. Think heroin addict locked in a room to dry out, or alcoholic thrown in a room to dry out. Miserable, awful. There is the physiologic withdrawal of carbohydrates, and the high-fat diet is the easiest, fastest way to replace carbohydrates, but it still sucks. It's never, ever, nirvana. Nirvana. Hey, sorry about you, Kurt. Addiction management requires an intense, upfront, miserable investment to break the habit. Because at first you desperately want your drug and you have to create the barrier so that it is not available. If that drug is readily available, I can guarantee you at some stage you're going to relapse and hit it. So addiction management is managed through removal and distance. You cannot have carbohydrates in your environment and think you are not going to eat them. You may not eat them today, but you will. Because you cannot break that habitual pathway. And over time, oh my God, I miss them, I'm not allowed to have them, fades into, I'm not even thinking about them. And eventually, over time, that habitual threshold breaking, that's disgusting. How the hell can anybody eat pizza when pizza used to be the love of your life? At the same time, you have to consciously force yourself to do the habits that you desire, even though they suck right now. You've heard me talk about my coffee. Well, my coffee was disgusting when I first started drinking it, but I imagined myself drinking it long term. So for a 2-week period, I forced myself to only drink coffee with a little bit of heavy cream in it. Disgusting. Hey, you know what? This is not so bad. And after about 2 weeks, hey, I can see myself doing this. And eventually I created a habit threshold where now, 23 years later, you don't bloody well get between me and my coffee or bad things are going to happen to you. And if you've ever seen a smoker who doesn't know where his cigarettes are, that's how I am with my coffee. Okay? So understand that habits have a threshold that diets don't pay homage to. You've got to consciously force yourself to break the habits by abstinence and consciously force yourself to create the replacement habits that you desire until they become part of your necessary everyday. It's that simple. It's that tough. And are you going to screw it up? Of course you are. And then you start over and over and over again, and you get better and better and better at it, and eventually it's permanent. But addiction management is binary. You either are or you are not consuming your drug of choice. And there is no measurable. Oh, it's a light cigarette. Oh, it's just one beer. Oh, it's just 30 grams of carbohydrates. Nobody cares. Because you're preserving a habit. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. We can talk more about this if you set up an appointment. Give me a shout, text, WhatsApp, Zoom, whatever it is, 561-517-0642. Talk to Kim. She will set it up for you. And hopefully we'll meet soon one-on-one. If you like the content, to keep these videos free, number 1, hit the subscribe button. Number 2, leave a comment. Hit the like button, leave a comment. Google helps me or YouTube helps me to keep this content free and to pay for James behind the console over there because he ain't free. So he's smiling at me. But help us out if this helps you. Throw $1 to our PayPal account, throw $1 to our Patreon account. There is another episode in this 3-part, 4-part series. If you enjoyed this, watch the next one.